To speak to the resolution, the chair recognizes Representative Cherry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a sad day when I learned that I was going to be memorializing Representative Minor on the floor. And today's a sad day, but I'm honored to be standing here. I hope I can convey a little bit about Jack, as he was known, to all of you so you know a little bit about him. Jack was a man of very strong convictions. And he didn't just have strong convictions and talk about his convictions. He's the type of person who acted on them. He's a man who was very passionate for his community, and he channeled that passion into public service. And he had an unrivaled ability to work with other folks. He was really a friend to everybody. Now, we heard a little bit about him in the resolution. I'm going to talk about a few things that I think people might not be aware of. We know that from the resolution, he started serving in Flint City Council in the 80s, but he was very active politically in the 1960s, and really that activism began with civil rights. I learned subsequent to his death that in the 60s, he and his wife purchased a house to then allow or sell it to an African-American family before we had fair housing ordinances. And in fact, he was very active in establishing Flint's fair housing ordinance. In the summer of '67, the Flint City Commission voted down a fair housing ordinance, and that resulted in a 10-day sleep-in on Flint City Hall, in the lawn of Flint City Hall. And he participated in that sit-down, that sleep-in. And when the Flint City Commission finally turned around in October of '67, so a few months later, and passed that ordinance, there were a group of citizens who put the signatures together for a referendum, and it got put on the ballot. And Jack was very active in campaigning to have that referendum rejected and keep the fair housing ordinance. And that happened in February '68. Now, that February '68 vote, when folks went to bed that night, they thought the referendum succeeded and the ordinance was out. When they woke up, they found out it had passed by 48 votes, and in fact, the ordinance stayed. So all of us know when an election is won by 48 votes, every single person who worked on that election affected the outcome. So we can say that Jack Minor, who worked on that election, helped ensure that Flint, Michigan had the first fair housing ordinance that was approved by the voters in the country. Now, in 1983, he was elected to the Flint City Council, and he worked very well with all the city council members. Now, the thing, if you go back and you talk to the folks who served him, they'll say, I disagreed with Jack a lot, but man, I love Jack. And that was the type of guy that he was. He was passionate about what he believed in, but he could turn around and work with you to develop a solution. Now, Jack was a teacher. He was the executive director of the Genesee County Bar Association, and he put in tons of work for our community. After he retired, he was very active in the Flint River Watershed Coalition, the Flint River Trail. He loved his community. He loved Michigan and the environment. In his time in the Michigan State House, he spent a lot of time on those environmental issues. He was very active in parks and in tax policy, particularly tax reversion issues, which affected our community in Flint a lot. But what he was known for is always being prepared when he came into an issue. When you sat down and had a conversation with Jack about an issue, he knew it in and out. And he built friendships. He built friendships with his colleagues on this side of the aisle and his colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And just like on Flint City Council, you could disagree passionately with Jack, have a debate, And then when we adjourned, you were out having a drink with him and joking around. He was regularly considered one of the most liberal members of this chamber. And he was also regularly considered one of the members who could best work with folks across the spectrum. He was a conversationalist, he was a storyteller, and he was a debater. He stood at this microphone very often when he served in the House. And the picture that I have of Jack when I think about him, and I've known him since I've been a kid, and my entire memory is, and particularly when he served in this chamber, he had silver white hair, giant bushy beard, and if you had to say, how do you describe Jack, he looked almost exactly like Ernest Hemingway. And I think he would view that as a compliment. He was a great statesman for our state, a great member of the Michigan House of Representatives, and a great champion for his community. And so it is with sadness that we are memorializing today. But I want his family to know, who are watching online today, how much the state of Michigan benefited from his service, and the community of Flint and Genesee County benefited from his service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. All members in favor of the memorial resolution, please rise. The resolution is adopted. Members